If you're interested in learning how to create great characters that write your dialogue for you, watch on, my friend. This video is for you. All right, so in this video, we're going to take some inspiration from an absolute classic writer, Elmore Leonard. He has written a book on writing. His tips on writing are so widely shared on the internet. So I'm going to take 3 tips from Elmore Leonard, and we're going to be doing some journaling around that so that you can not just create great characters, but create great characters that literally write your dialogue for you. Like, how good does that sound? So the first quote that I'm going to take from Elmore Leonard: I don't want the reader to be aware of me as the writer. Okay, so this is a really nice one to get a beautifully deep sense of. This idea that when someone is reading your writing, they're not aware of you as the writer. And that means that all they're aware of are the characters and the experiences that the characters are having. So, how do we do this? How do we achieve this? The beautiful thing is that when we achieve it, we know that we've achieved it and therefore we've written great characters. And if we've come down this process, those characters are going to be so great that they are writing that dialogue for us. So the first way in for this, and I really mean that way in, because it's really nice to have a way of getting into a place where we can write great characters. Like, how do we get into that? How do we get into that zone? Again, we take another tip from Elmore Leonard. Avoid detailed descriptions of characters. So, we've got, I don't want the reader to be aware of me as a writer, and we've got avoid detailed descriptions of characters. So those are going to be our 2 jumping off points. Now, if we're avoiding detailed descriptions of characters, what we're safeguarding against is writing the piece as the writer. The writer would describe a character. So say here's my character and I'm the writer. I'm looking at this character and yeah, I would describe them. But if I don't want the reader to be aware of me, I have to take myself out of the transaction. That just leaves my character. Now, this is the mistake that people make when they write detailed descriptions of their characters. They stay in the scene, and so they're writing about their character, but it's still very much about the writer. If you get rid of the writer and you put yourself in the character, and you think, well, I can't describe myself because if I am the character, like, why would I be describing myself? I would be just being. So then, as you're just being the character, you have to find a way to show the reader who you are. So it's a really, really strict but very effective practice. So what I want for you to start to get a sense of is, if you are in the character, how could you describe yourself, but not in the same way that you would as if you were the writer? So what I want for you to do is to take a minute, okay? Think of one of the characters in your book or in your short story or in your screenplay, but I want for you to describe yourself, but from your own point of view. So for example, if I was a writer and I was describing the character, I might describe the way that they looked, because as a writer, that's what I see. Whereas if I was the character and I was thinking, wait, how can I be the character but also describe the way I look? I might be saying things like, as I was getting ready for work, I brushed my hair and I noticed that one of my grey hairs fell out and onto my shoulder. And I picked it off thinking to myself, there's a few more of those that have been appearing recently. And so suddenly my reader is like, okay, here's a woman. She's not completely grey, but she's getting some grey hairs that are beginning to grow. So I've given my reader a description, but I haven't simply described the character. I've shown them doing something, but then gives that information to the reader. So I want us to take a minute. I want for you to think about one of your characters. I want for you to think about something you specifically want to tell the reader, like a piece of information that you want to give them, but how you can give that piece of information coming from the character themselves. So take a minute with this, and then after you do the prompt, I'm going to give you a few more tips. It might be that you want to give yourself a little bit longer. Feel free to pause the video or come back, but for the purposes of this exercise, we're just going to take a minute, and then I'm going to take you through the next step. Off you go. Okay. Now, maybe you found it challenging, or maybe as you started this exercise, you were like, oh, I'm kind of finding this quite interesting. Sometimes people really feel that I'm asking them to do something that their brain doesn't yet know how to do. That's actually a really good sign. It just shows that this is something new for you to learn, which is fantastic, because then you can get really clear on how to learn it. So if you did find it challenging, sometimes it can be really useful to just imagine being inside your character and looking out of their eyes. Like you're really being quite strict on that point of view. So you're imagining like literally sitting in your character's head and looking out of their eyes at the world around, getting a sense of how they feel, getting a sense of what they're thinking. The way to gauge if you have fully immersed yourself in the character is if that dialogue does start to feel like it's coming easier, if that dialogue starts to feel surprising. Sometimes when I'm really in a character, I'll be writing a page of dialogue and I will be writing stuff and I will be surprised as the ideas come. And I know that I've really stepped into a great relationship with my characters. Me as the writer has been put aside and the character is literally speaking to me. So that's the way to gauge it. If you find that you're struggling, again, it's just take a moment. Might be that you want to take a walk around the block, get some fresh air, and then come back to the desk and really see yourself looking out of your character's eyes and really imagine seeing the world through the eyes of your character. The second Actually, we've done two now. So the third quote by Elmore Leonard I find really helps put the cherry on top of this process. And this was actually something that I read in a Paris Review article where they mentioned that Elmore Leonard was banging away at his next book up until he had a stroke. So that might sound like a really weird example that I've brought into a video that's all about how to write great characters. But what it says about Elmore is that he must have really loved what he was doing. If he was banging away at his next book up until he had a stroke, it meant that he was a fairly elderly guy and he was still working very hard even though he'd got to a ripe old age. And so again, it's a real indication to remind us to come to our writing with that enthusiasm, with that passion, with that understanding that this is all we want to do. So maybe it is that you have another job and you write on the side, or maybe it is that you're not sure where your writing is going to take you. But the one thing that you can commit is how you want to feel about things when you come to your writing. So when you're working on these characters, it's about coming to your work in progress with a real eagerness to dive into your characters. It's about opening up that document and making progress with that document with a real understanding of like, this is what I want to be doing. This is what I want to spend my life doing. I want to be a writer. I want to love writing. I want to be filled with ideas. And so really managing your attitude as you're coming to your writing. So again, sometimes it can be really useful just to jot down some of the ways that you want to feel when you come to your laptop each day, but always reminding yourself with this process that you're wanting to get into a place where the reader is not aware of you as the writer. There's no divide between the reader and the characters. And that way you're going to find that you are totally in your character and your characters are the ones that are doing the writing. And that's when you find that they start to write your dialogue for you, which is a really wonderful place to be in. So I really hope you found this one useful. If you feel that you need more advice, if you feel that you could do with more writing techniques, more tips, or you're beginning to think, you know what, I'm really enjoying my writing, but I would love to start learning more about how I can generate an income with my writing, grab my free video download. You'll see it in the comments below. It's going to take you through to my free masterclass. You're also going to get sent a few bonuses. You're going to get sent a registration link so you can join me for a free live masterclass. You're also going to be able to join the community on Facebook, all for free. Really lovely to spend this time with you today, giving you tips about how to create great characters. Look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care till then.